If you're between 42 and 49 and you've been hearing yourself say, "Is this it?" there's a reason why this exact window is the danger zone. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why and what you actually need to do to get through it. My low point was 49, and I'm 56 now. And what I realized a while ago is that life tends to go through 7-year cycles. And that 42 to 49 spell is, I think, the most dangerous one. I kind of fell apart at 49. And since I've come out the other side a few years ago, I've spent a lot of time trying to understand what happened in that period. And that's what I'm going to share with you here. For me, there was no big dramatic breakdown, but inside there'd been something humming away for years that was this low-grade, persistent feeling that even though I'd done everything I was supposed to, I still didn't quite feel like I'd made it. Now, I'm not the first person to recognize this 7-year cycle. In fact, it's been written about by various people for almost a century. Obviously, it's not a rigid scientific law. Not everyone is going to experience this, but it's a pattern that shows up across philosophy and psychology, and I see it with the people that I coach. Now, anyone in middle age knows that life has its ups and downs, but in that 42 to 49 period, it can often feel like you're approaching a high to all of a sudden find everything comes crashing down. So briefly, here's the pattern of those 7-year milestones. At 7 years of age, we're starting to separate a little from idolizing our parents. 14, obviously, is adolescence. We're trying to figure out who we are in our own right. At 21, we're stepping into the adult world. At 28, we may be settling into a relationship or a career path. 35, we may well have a young family, so we're adapting to parenthood. 42 is the start of what I think of as the striving years. And at 49, the striving stops working. 56, where I am now, is coming out the other side. And if you've done the work, you are rewriting the second half of adulthood for yourself. Now, if you're in that 42 to 49 stretch, I'm going to explain the shortcut to coming out the other side. And it definitely doesn't have to take 7 years. Most of those 7-year milestones pass without much drama, but that 42 to 49 window is what I want to spend the rest of this video on, because that's the danger zone. 42 is the start of the striving years, and we often start measuring ourselves against the template we were handed regarding career, family, and our status compared to others. And here, we often feel that we need to keep pushing ourselves if we don't feel we've made it and achieved everything we're supposed to by our mid-40s. That was me approaching the peak of my career. It doesn't feel anything like a crisis at this point. You just feel you need to keep achieving. You feel like if you keep going, eventually you'll feel like you've made it. And that's what makes this phase so dangerous. It disguises itself as feeling like you're just about to summit a mountain, when in fact you could be on the edge of a slippery slope, or you're maybe even about to get caught in an avalanche. Your late 40s come around and the striving stops working. This is peak midlife crisis territory, because you're becoming increasingly disillusioned with the idea that you were sold this map for how your life is supposed to work, and now you're realizing that there is no pot of gold waiting for you. And here's the part that surprised me when I went looking for the psychology behind this. It isn't just a feeling, there's data behind it. Researchers actually have a name for ages like 29, 39, and 49. They're called 9-ender years, and the pattern isn't at all subtle. 49-year-olds are 3 times more likely to run their first marathon than 50-year-olds, and affairs and suicides also spike in these 9-ender years. It's what happens when coming up to the end of a decade forces us to reflect and rethink where we've got to. I think 49 is the end of one of these 7-year cycles when we're just exhausted with modern life. Physical changes make us acutely aware that we're now older and coming up on a half century, and we just start to seriously think, is this it? The good news is that there is something of a scientific reason as to why things get better from this point. It's the U-shaped happiness curve. In the West, it bottoms out in our late 40s, but from there, it starts climbing continuously so that into our old age, we're often happier than we were in our 20s. If you'd asked me at 49 where I thought I would be at 56, I would have just been all doom and gloom. I just could not see a way out. And I don't know why we all have this idea that from midlife, it's just going to be slow, gradual decline until we die. Because fortunately, I did find a way out. But it was tough. I didn't have a job. Then we had a global pandemic, and I lost my father and my father-in-law within the space of about 7 months. But the research says happiness rises after 49. And my own experience is that you can get yourself out of a slump. Here's what I've learned about how you can make that happen. The conclusion I came to is that there are really only 3 paths on offer. The first one is full-blown midlife crisis. Blow it all up and start again. Now, I'm guessing that's not your preferred option. Unless you're planning on acting like the next Peter Stringfellow or Angus Dayton, you probably feel you have too many responsibilities and there are just too many people depending on you for you to walk away from everything and move to Bali. Option 2 is carry on grinding it out. Just grit your teeth and keep going. This is what I see most people do. They just think, well, I guess this is what midlife is like. And they'll stick it out for another 10 years thinking eventually I'll get to retirement and it all will have been worth it. The problem is none of us know what's around the corner. And do you really want to spend another 10 years having to go through some kind of water torture, like some evil game of corporate endurance that is just going to make you more and more miserable? But there is a third option. Most people don't know it exists. I didn't at 49. But I found my way there, and it changed everything about how the next chapter looked. Option 3 is design your way out of it. You have a problem, and design thinking is a great way of solving complex problems with minimal risk and with practical solutions that you know will work because you've tested them out first before you fully implement them. This is what I did, and it took a few years, and I made a few wrong turns along the way, but it worked. If you don't want to spend several years figuring it out on your own, I can help. You still design the path out of this that's right for you, but I can show you the shortcuts. Over the last 2 years, I've built and refined the process, and I've tested it out with people facing exactly the same challenge. Rather than either exploding or resigning yourself to just putting up with this feeling, I can help you resolve this "is this it" dilemma. It takes about 3 months of work, but you'll go from feeling empty and stuck to feeling more energized and fulfilled. The next chapter is just too important to drift through, and you don't need to blow it all up to make changes. You just need to be more intentional about redesigning things. Subscribe for more videos on redesigning your midlife, or if you want help on what a redesign could look like for you, there's a link in the description to book a call. Thanks for watching.